You're listening to the Today in Manufacturing podcast.
Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Today in Manufacturing podcast. With me this week are Jeff Ranke and Anna Wells. We each have more than 15 years of experience covering the manufacturing industry. Every week, we take the 5 most popular stories in the manufacturing industry and discuss the implications they have on the industry going forward. All right, before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. Finally, if you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, David, or Anna at in.com with email the podcast in the subject line. We're also live every Friday, as we are now, because it's Friday. So just subscribe to us on YouTube at IEN Magazine, and you'll get a notification so you can meet us now on every Friday. Anna, how you doing?
Fine. How are you?
I don't know. I'm feeling a little punchy.
Seems to be.
I'm like, we're running into the last few hours before I go on vacation. And so it's just like, I'm here, but
You're on every Friday.
Yeah. On every Friday.
On every Friday.
Except next Friday, because you'll be on vacation.
I'll be on vacation. Yeah. But I mean, we're talking about like day 10 of family. So
you might
maybe I'll be back. Jeff, how you doing?
I'm great, David.
That's good. That's good. You're always great. Good.
I'm a lucky guy.
All right. Well, before we get started, we have a word from our sponsor.
Oil Eater's household cleaners, industrial cleaners, and industrial equipment are specifically designed to replace dangerous solvents and are used throughout the world. Our safe water-based formula dissolves grease and grime for almost any surface and leaves a fresh, non-chemical scent. Our ultra-concentrated formulas are perfect for light, medium, or heavy cleaning and can be used on shop floors, in parts washers, to clean equipment, and more. VOC compliant, Oil Eater will do an excellent job in a multitude of applications, safely and cost-effectively, while reducing your chemical usage. Safe for the user, safe for the surfaces being cleaned, and safe for the environment. For more information, visit oileater.com or call 800-528-0334.
And we're back. Before we get started, just a reminder that if you click the link below, get yourself a free sample of Oil Eater. That's our sponsor, Oil Eater. Oil Eater. All right, our first story this week, brought to you by Oil Eater. Lego to build $1 billion factory in Virginia. The Lego Group plans to invest more than $1 billion in Chesterfield County, Virginia. The company is building a 1.7 million square foot facility that will employ more than 1,700 people who will mold, process, and pack Lego products. The factory will be carbon neutral as 100% of its day-to-day energy needs will be matched by renewable energy generated by an on-site solar park. Construction will begin this fall with production starting in 2025. In the interim, a temporary packaging site will open in an existing building nearby in early 2024 and create 500 new jobs. This will be Lego's 7th factory globally. The company has a nearby manufacturing site in Monterrey, Mexico that primarily supplies the U.S. market. That location is also going to be expanded and upgraded. Lego factories will also expand in Europe and China with another new factory also slated for Vietnam. Jeff, things be good for the brick makers.
Yeah, this is cool. It's interesting, though, when you look at this type of project coming underway, I think we view it differently now than we have in the past. At least I do. When we see them wanting to hire 1,700 people and even 500 people in the short term. Previously, it'd be like, that's amazing. That's fantastic. Great economic development opportunity for this area. Now you look at it like, that could be a huge challenge. Manufacturing is having such a tough time luring people to come into the facilities. This location as well has like a 2.4% unemployment rate. So way below the national average. So people there are in pretty good shape. There's also a couple of larger food manufacturers right in this vicinity. So food manufacturing, as we've seen from some of the strikes that have been occurring lately, don't typically pay as well. Yeah. Lego isn't, I would say, on the upper tier, but they're very fair in their payment when you look at what they do. So it could also create some competition there between these different industrial entities. The other thing that's interesting was with all of the renewable elements, I think you're going to get into that a little bit more. They want to do a lot of renewable energy on site here at this facility as part of the build. And it kind of flies in the face of what the governor there has done. Essentially, Virginia, right before the latest governor came in and was elected, they signed a cap and trade deal. They're part of a consortium with 10 other states where basically, and kind of just shortening up what it is, they can produce so much CO2. After that, they're essentially asked to buy a permit to create more CO2. Now, when they have to buy these permits, which, I mean, it's a fine, but that money then goes into a fund to help generate more renewable energy for the grid in these states. But in the meantime, in order to finance these credits or these permits that they have to buy, energy prices go up. So one of the things that Lego kind of called out in building this facility is saying, yeah, despite what the Virginia governor thinks, we see renewable energy as a way forward. So it'll be interesting sort of on those two fronts. See, can they get enough people in there? And how does this whole renewable energy thing that they're trying to really champion at this location, how does it turn out in light of sort of the political environment there in Virginia?
If a job is dollar for dollar the same, do you think a potential worker chooses Lego just on cool factor?
I would.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I mean, there's other things that go into it in terms of what you're comfortable with, commute, all that sort of stuff. But if all things being equal, so some of the other ones, oh boy, who was it now? I think it was the names escape me now. Some of the larger food processors that are in the area, but I mean, those facilities, that can be tough just from a working environment perspective.
We're talking about deboning chicken or making bricks.
I think it's more like condiment type elements.
Sorry,
it's below.
I mean, I would be, a little more attracted to like a ketchup making position. That's true. Anna, what were your thoughts on, Lego coming to the U.S.?
Yeah, it's exciting. I was surprised to see that they only have 7 factories, honestly, worldwide. But there's so much good to talk about here between the jobs, the carbon neutral status, the fact that it's his first U.S. factory. But the other exciting thing for me is just the product. Like you said, the cool factor. Lego's really kind of jumped on the whole educational aspect of their toys over the years. And as the term STEM or STEAM has kind of become common vernacular, they've sort of, taken to the bandwagon there in a good way, I think, and created.
Or led it. I think they've led part of that charge.
For sure, because they're creating these learning systems with their toys that are being utilized in schools now, that focus on tinkering and creative building. And the idea here is not only, I think, to bring skill development, but also interest at a young age in these applications that are considered both trades, like building and maintenance, but also like design. They're finding ways to apply coding principles through these Lego
Mindstorms
solutions. Yeah,
I think it's Lego Mindstorms.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've never used these, but I do think that they're very interesting in terms of like how they're being utilized by kids. And so it's just sort of it's $1 billion facility that is bringing a product that's kind of exciting and of value to society, which you don't always get that, right? I mean, here we are arguing about like, I don't know, the smell of a pork processing plant or whatever, just there's so much stuff that people take issue with, and from a environmental or a moral standpoint that creates all this dialogue and stuff when these plants set up. But I don't think there's a lot of Lego haters out there.
No, not a lot of Lego haters.
One thing I thought was interesting, because I was thinking about, you think about now everything through the lens of, are we on the cusp of a recession? You think about toys. Is this an ancillary expense? Does this stuff get pushed out of people's budgets? Legos are expensive. But if you look back at how Lego actually fared during the 2009 recession, they posted like record sales and profits during that time. They expanded during that time. And so they were essentially dubbed sort of recession proof based on that. So we'll see if they are impacted by sort of this economic slowdown that people are kind of anticipating. Lego might just do fine.
I have to say that I'm constantly surprised by the like Lego Nation or Lego Army, because it is not just a toy for kids. It is everything up to, I mean, it's kind of like the next generations, like how our grandparents used to do puzzles. Like now, the new grandparents, they're doing Lego sets, building Lego sets. Like, and we're not talking like small ones. We're talking like tens of thousands of pieces to make the Frozen castle.
It's insane how complex they are, but they're very cool.
Lego's also done really well with licensing in terms of movies and some other products. So I think they're even doing some stuff with like recycled plastics now. I think we ran a story on that not too long ago. So a lot of cool stuff.
They've been working on that for so long because they're so particular about I can't remember what it's called, but it's like how they call it like the click or the clasp as to how they connect to each other. And they can't seem to get that right with recycled plastic. But I mean, they've been working on it for like 10 years. So according to Karsten Rasmussen, chief operations officer at Lego, the company wants to locate the factories closer to one of its biggest markets, which will also shorten up the distance products have to travel and allow Lego the ability to rapidly respond to changing consumer demand. So a lot of things that we've heard in terms of people, either nearshoring or just getting closer in the supply chain. They're also working with the Virginia Talent Accelerator program to find skilled labor. And I was kind of curious just to see what that was and how it worked. And because Jeff, to your point, you talk about where you're going to find the skilled labor. And this accelerator program sounds kind of interesting. So it's offered by the Virginia Economic Development Partnership in partnership with the Virginia Community College System. And basically, it provides training and recruitment that's customized to the company's specific needs for operations, equipment, standards, and even culture. And all of the program services are free to qualified new and expanding companies as an incentive for job creation.
That's great.
Yeah, right. Like,
very cool.
We will train your job force. The only like little caveat that I saw that was kind of weird was it was like, to qualify for it, you at least need to pay 1.2 times minimum wage. So like, 0.02% higher than minimum wage, and then you qualify.
Wait, 1.2 times. That's not that much.
Yeah. Or 0.2. Sorry, 0.2.
So 20 cents on the dollar.
Yeah. Okay.
Doing math on the podcast
it's something we should just in general stay away from. Yeah. Oh man, I knew that I was going to be foiled by that decimal point. My goodness.
Just circling back, the two big food processors are Marichan ramen noodles and Sabra hummus.
Oh, two things that I love.
Yeah, let's not go hurting that ramen market right there. Like,
I don't really want to know how that stuff's made, though. Actually, I'll go.
Or how it qualifies as
Lego
food, roughly. Like what's with the salted noodles, right? They're noodles. All right. Well, that's interesting, and it does. It'll be interesting to see how Lego lands in Virginia. All right. Our next most popular story this week. No one is talking about the latest shortage. It's not like consumers can just wait around for shelves to be restocked. Supply chain problems with cotton, rayon, pulp, and plastic are having a serious impact on tampons. The materials have been diverted to other medical products, like personal protection equipment. Multiple factors are at play. For example, the war in Ukraine is shaking up the fertilizer industry, and a drought in Texas is impacting cotton harvests. Unlike the toilet paper shortage before it, women can't just wait for these products to make it to market. When pressed on the issue, Procter & Gamble, which owns Tampax, blamed Amy Schumer. But it was more of a humble brag, as the comedian started doing Tampax ads, and demand has been up 7.7% ever since. So, I mean, a credit to her brand power. But Playtex and other brands are also having the same problems. Jeff, for me, as a person that does most of the shopping in the home, I saw this coming months ago, and I was kind of surprised that this was something nobody was talking about, because I feel like I was having this conversation a while ago.
Well, I live with 4 women, and I was completely unaware of it because I don't buy tampons.
Oh, okay.
That's something they take care of. So, and I think that is part of this. And I feel like we need to say tampon as much as possible just to get past like the supposed taboo nature of the topic or something.
That was my first job, was stocking tampons. So, I mean, you always talk about all the jobs that I've
had. You've had every job.
Yeah.
Of course, this was your first job.
This was my first job. Just like, you know what a sophomore in high school needs to do? Stock tampons in front of all of his friends.
There you go.
That's how you get a thick skin. Anyway, Jeff.
Yeah, follow that one up. You can feel like, unlike gasoline or some of the other supply chain shortages, toilet paper, you're looking at about 1/3 of the population that actually buys tampons. When you look at half of them being women, and according to the article, 40% of women are buying these products. Mm-hmm. So I think that is one of the reasons we're not talking about it as much. Obviously, that's still a huge amount of the population, but it's not everybody like some of those other things. So that does play part of it. I think one of the things that I learned in looking at this is the cotton situation, how real that is with that drought and where it's produced. It's not produced everywhere in the U.S. You can't grow it everywhere. So with that drought hitting Texas, that is huge. And I think what that's created is not only a shortage, but also a huge competitive issue on the marketplace. I was not aware of all the things cotton is used for outside of simple textiles. We're looking at fishnets, coffee filters, book binding materials, money. They make U.S. currency using cotton.
Whoa.
Cottonseed oil has become big for a lot of restaurants for cooking. It's also used in packaging and biofuels. So cotton itself is in huge demand just for all those other areas. When there's a shortage, obviously it becomes more expensive, more limited supply, becomes more competitive. So yeah, you can see why this is an issue. I'm not sure what the solution is, to be honest, but it is something that needs to be addressed without a doubt.
It might only directly impact 40% of the population, but to think it doesn't impact everybody, Jeff.
Well, I think you're in the minority, David. I don't think most husbands buy their wives tampons.
Oh, no. Most husbands don't, but I mean, but they're all impacted by that scenario.
Well, I was not aware. Like
I
said,
yeah.
I didn't
No.
I just,
I know that you can maybe know you didn't know about the shortage, but everyone knows that if this is a problem, there's more than one person that's not happy. Anna, your thoughts on the tampon shortage?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's never really been a time, like shortage or not, that people really want to talk broadly about feminine hygiene products. So the closest we came really was there was some debate a few years back that came to a height, I guess, about whether it was reasonable for these products to be taxed or not, when they're in fact a basic requirement for so many girls and women. And I think that discussion was greeted with some of the same feedback, certainly that we talked through in this article, which is that some men who are holding the decision-making power here don't understand how expensive these products are, how necessary they are, how lack of access can really turn into an issue of both physical and mental health for people. And once again, it's those who have lower incomes that are going to be impacted the most because they can't afford to visit 7 stores. They can't afford to pay for Prime membership or $5 shipping on a $12 product, you know? So if you add that wrinkle to the already dire statistic that 1 in 4 don't have access to menstrual products already due to poverty, I think it's a very important issue, and I'm glad that it's getting some attention. So when people suggest that sanitary products be required in schools or made free in schools in their bathrooms, I don't think that's the time to start wailing about handouts.
Agreed.
Personally, this is a biological issue that needs to be addressed, and it's a stress that I don't think a teenage girl needs to carry when she's just trying to get through the school day.
Yeah.
Is it something she can afford or not, if it's available or not to her,
Yeah.
So I do think that there's a lot more discussion beyond this shortage, which I hope is temporary. But to Jeff's point, who knows how long this could go on, especially with the climate impacting this availability of cotton. That stuff may not be going away at this point. So I know there are a lot of reusable and recyclable type products that are available now that may get a boost from this situation. But again, I think the overarching, point here is that people need to become comfortable talking about this because it impacts a lot of people.
Well, and you mentioned school children in particular, but this is not something that any woman at any level should ever be stressed about because it is a basic need.
I agree.
And I mean, to some of the points that have come up earlier, that shouldn't be taxed, that, and honestly shouldn't be so expensive. Because to the point I was bringing about shopping, I knew that there was a shortage coming or already happening because, I buy in bulk. It's the only way to make them somewhat reasonable in terms of cost. And those products left the shelves months ago. And you're seeing smaller and smaller package sizes and for more and more expensive prices. And it is frustrating because you have to have them. Time Sullivan, who is the co-founder and CEO of TOP, or the Organic Project, which makes tampons in Europe, said that the gender of people in charge of America and its companies might explain the shortage. And I was wondering, maybe that would also explain the baby formula shortage as well. The average price for tampon products saw a 9.8% jump in cost as of May 28th, and that's according to Nielsen IQ. Now, Edgewell and Procter & Gamble both believe that the shortage will only last a few weeks, so hopefully there's a silver lining. Kimberly Clark is kind of an outlier, saying that its U brand by Kotex is fully stocked. And so they didn't elaborate as to what they did to prepare or be in front of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, at least the shelves aren't barren yet anyways.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got through that one, Jeff. You know, I could tell it was a little bit like, all right, you guys are going to talk about tampons now.
Tampons.
Mm-hmm.
Tampons. I'm going to say it every 5 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've raised 3 daughters. There's
Yeah,
Jeff's not
that's right.
scared.
Familiarize yourself with America.
Yeah.
All right. Our next most popular story. Ford tells dealers to stop selling Mustang Mach-E. A possible safety risk with Mustang's Mach-E crossovers could render the vehicles immobile. Approximately 49,000 2021 and 2022 Mach-E's will be recalled that were built at a Cuautitlán, a plant in Mexico. I had it earlier and I totally lost it. Cuautitlán? Yeah, that's it. Nailed it. The problem is in the vehicle's high voltage battery main contactors, which could potentially overheat and result in a malfunction that causes the car not to start or lose propulsion power while in motion. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, the Mach-E has had 6 recalls thus far, including a software error that could cause unintended acceleration, improperly attached seat belts, and loose subframe bolts. Ford projects a fix to the latest problem starting next month. The fix, Anna, will include over-the-air software updates, and owners can also take their vehicles to a Ford dealer. Now, I don't know if you could understand my mush mouth there as I stumbled through the description of this story, but in the event that you got any piece of that unintelligible slop out of there, what's your take on the story?
How do we issue a stop sale on David's?
We can't because he's like his biggest fan. He like can't pronounce something.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
It's all good. Just keeps going.
Definitely
Cuautitlán.
malfunctioning there.
Yep.
Well, this is serious, right? I mean, and there's never a good time for a stop sale. So what I'm about to say is probably a weird take, but the timing of this, we have back-to-back challenges basically for Ford, like the Mach-E situation. And then that comes right on the heels of a recall of 2.7 million vehicles that can potentially roll away due to a transmission issue. The timing is not the worst because every auto stock is in the toilet right now. Ford's stock price hit a 52-week high in January, along with a lot of other stocks. That was at $26 a share. Right now, it's trading at $11 a share. GM is on a similar arc. Tesla just announced a price increase. We just learned Tesla's being investigated further for a number of crashes that happened during a short period of time for its autopilot beta test or whatever. So if you think this reflects poorly on electrics, let's consider how much the price of gas might be effective in opening minds towards this technology to begin with. I don't know. Maybe it's a wash right now. I honestly think like this might not be like, if this happens like in a vacuum and Ford has to defend itself to the media over this voraciously, which I don't think they're having to do right now because there's so much other stuff going on.
Agreed. Yeah.
Maybe they just brush this under the rug. I don't know, turn it into like a blip and not this big hit to their credibility that it could be maybe at a different time.
Yeah. Jeff, did you notice that maybe this would have been even a larger story in the event that this was a Tesla? I mean, the fact that it's a Mustang maybe popped it up a little bit, but
yeah, potentially, I would agree.
Yeah.
I think the fact that it's a Mustang does get more attention when you do a stop sale order. I mean, that's a huge deal. I kind of agree with Anna though. I think this is a blip on the radar. I really do, for a couple of different reasons. First of all, this facility that down in Mexico that they are using, they've been building stuff there for 50 years. Okay, so this is a well-grounded production facility. They used to make F-150s there. So things are good there. It's not a production quality problem or something like that. It is this vehicle. And the other thing is, if you look on Edmunds.com, Cars.com, wherever they do reviews of this vehicle, less than 1% of the people offer any complaints. And the overwhelming majority love this car.
Interesting.
This vehicle. They want it. It drives great. It's got reliability issues. Okay. We've seen this with other EVs as well.
Yeah.
So I think this is, even though it's horribly dangerous when you look at some of the things that are going wrong, like accelerating when you don't want it to or weren't looking for it to. Some of the other areas that in terms if there is a crash, bad things could become worse things. These are significant things. That's why there's obviously 6 recalls in place. But when you look at the fact that Ford delivered a 23% year over year increase in these vehicles going into 2022, they'll figure it out. Right now, it's the second best selling battery electric vehicle in this segment. It only trails the Tesla Model Y. So everything is positive there for Ford and for this vehicle. They've got some things they obviously need to address and work out, but they will. And as soon as they bring this back, the market will embrace it with open arms.
So it's actually not a stop sale. It's a stop delivery. And that means that dealers can still sell the Mach-E, but they can't deliver the car until the issue has been resolved. What I was thinking about is, how much confidence are you going to have as you go in to buy something and they're like, that sounds great, we'll get it to you in just a minute?
Read the reviews.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a Mustang.
Yeah.
This is a passionate group of individuals who have just bought into Mustang and they will always will.
Okay.
So if you're
true.
saying, you know what, be careful of the seatbelt in the back seat, that's one of the recalls. They're gonna be like, I don't sit in the back seat.
Yeah.
Okay, be careful because there's a software glitch. It might accelerate when you don't want it to. They're gonna be like, hey, I get to go faster. I mean, seriously, that is a little bit of the mindset. Yeah. So I get how this, again, I don't think it's going to be as impactful. If this was more of a family vehicle or something along those lines, I think it would be different. But just with the type, the model that it is, with it being a Mustang, the owner's different.
Gotcha.
So.
Well, I mean, and that's, but they're so passionate. Like, and could you imagine if they go to a dealership and they're like, yes, thank you for buying one. You're not going to get it yet because they won't even give it to you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. I just see it causing a couple of potential problems.
It should.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, it should.
Yeah. So in a statement to Edmunds, Ford said that, quote, on affected vehicles, direct current fast charging and repeated wide open pedal events can cause the high voltage battery main contactors to overheat. Overheating may lead to arcing and deformation of the electrical contact surfaces, which can result in a contactor that remains open or a contactor that welds closed. An overheating contactor that opens while driving can result in a loss of motive power, which can increase the risk of an accident. And when I just hear of anything arcing in a car, that just sounds dangerous.
Yeah, why did they say arcing in this statement? I feel like that's too much.
There's
no welding going on here, is there?
They're finally, as a company, just being upfront about exactly what's happening. Yeah. And it's, maybe it's refreshing. Loyal listener Seth says, Stanger's gonna stang.
He's not wrong.
No.
Stangers do stang.
Leading to a long list of one-liners provided to the podcast by Seth. And you know what? Stanger's gonna stang.
Hey, you got that one out pretty clean.
Thank you. I was gonna say strangers. You know what? Stranger's gonna stang. Oh, I don't think that's not what it said.
That one
wouldn't work.
No.
All right. Our next most popular story this week. Tesla won't stop catching fire weeks after crash. A Tesla Model S in California was sent to the scrap heap after being heavily damaged in a crash. 3 weeks after the accident, the Sacramento Fire Department was called to the yard after the car burst into flames. The fire started in the battery compartment and didn't appear to come from an outside ignition source. The problem was that the battery wouldn't stop reigniting, even after firefighters flipped over the vehicle and sprayed water directly into the battery compartment. So, the crews decided to drown it. They dug a small hole, filled it with water, shoved in the dead Tesla, and buried it in some mafia grave. It seemed to do the trick. Anna, according to the Facebook page for the firefighters in a nearby town, they said, quote, "The future is going to be tricky."
Was the term mafia grave in the article, or
no? That's a little bit of color for me.
They didn't use a baseball bat to get the car into the hole or anything.
Oh, I couldn't listen. Ben Munson, our associate, worked up this article, and I just couldn't stop thinking of Joe Pesci through this entire thing. Yeah. It's so bad, and it's just, I'm sorry for anyone.
No, I can't.
Yeah, I know.
Well done.
No, Anna, they did not say that, but I mean, I think in the moments where they're like, you know what we got to do? We got to bury it.
We got to bury it. No, it was appropriate. So while I'm not sure that Ford story is going to have a marketing impact on the Mach-E, this story might, I don't know, simply because it was so sensational.
Yeah.
I think in this case, it's easy to look for someone to blame because it always feels like the quickest avenue to a solution. The first responders are definitely doing the best that they can here. I think that's clear. If you want to point fingers, let's look at the report that was issued by the NTSB last year, the National Transportation Safety Board, calling out automakers, saying that they've basically failed to distribute adequate guidelines to mitigate safety risks relating to EV batteries, and that subsequently first responders were being put at risk. Among these risks, they identified those relating to electric shock and battery reignition fire, that arise from the stranded energy that remains in a damaged battery. So NTSB at the time called for manufacturers to develop and publish vehicle-specific response guides for addressing battery fires and limiting chemical thermal runaway and reignition. NTSB added that the updated guidelines should also include information on how to safely store vehicles with damaged lithium-ion batteries. And I'd say that the best evidence of any that their efforts have since not been fully effective is this story, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of work to still be done there. NTSB, pointed this out in January of last year. I don't know how long it takes to get this information vehicle specific and out there and in the hands of all these departments of first responders, but something needs to be done there.
Jeff, I feel like we're at the point where it was like the first grease fire in the world, and somebody just kept throwing water at it, and they couldn't believe it wasn't going out. We've talked about it a lot on the podcast about EV fires, and we know, there's a lot of development going on right now, not specifically with automakers, but with outside universities trying to figure out best practices when it comes to putting out these fires. But I mean, it's just, I don't want to say it's a growing pain, but like,
it is. Yeah. It's a growing issue, horrible obstacle. And shout out to these firefighters who finally figured out a solution. I mean, that's pretty ingenious and well done.
What if it's still on fire in the hole?
Well, I think that's part of the whole thing here, right? First of all, you touched on the fact that we need to figure out a way to store these vehicles. Okay, when they're in an accident, it's not just the first responders, it's the salvage yards, it's the repair facilities, all of that who need to understand
the tow trucks,
what to do when you get these vehicles in. And I think one of the things, and you talked about, again, the automakers not getting information out to everybody. Of all places, FEMA actually put out some numbers that says the average EV fire burns at about 4,900 degrees Fahrenheit. Ooh. That's more than 3 times hotter than a traditional, like a combustion engine fire.
Yeah.
So if you're a first responder, if you're a firefighter and you're used to getting a typical response from water, and you realize you're going to need basically 3 times that amount potentially just to get this thing cooled down. And that's not even talking about reigniting potentially down the line because all the materials are still there. Everything you need is still there for the fire to begin. We do need to come up with better operating steps in order to handle this stuff. And one of the things that made me wonder is we're putting in chargers for batteries. Do we need to put in infrastructure for more water for responding to these types of fires? I mean, do we need to do something that drastic in order to make sure that we're not just protecting the drivers of these vehicles, but whatever they come in contact with, the first responders. And then in this instance, I mean, thankfully it was in basically a junkyard. Yeah. What if it's just in like what if it's just parked on the street or something? I mean, what more damage could this have done? So it is kind of crazy when you think about this. And it's a huge and growing concern that needs more attention from the automakers, not just the safety community.
No, I could just see these as they're being towed from the crash, catching fire again on the wrecker. Causing huge problems. And so I just imagine this like future of unmarked EV graves along the roadside where, you just kind of have to keep your like winter shovel in the car at all times. So that way, if you're in an accident, you can quickly bury your car.
One of the things I was thinking,
with like a little excavator.
One of the things with the whole development of vehicles and trying to get them lighter weight and more fuel efficient is the underhood areas became tighter and tighter. EVs are the opposite. Because they don't have that huge engine under there, there's more room under the hood. And in a lot of cases, like this model specifically, there is a front and rear trunk. That's how much room there is. Maybe we use some of that space to install some sort of cooling mechanisms or some sort of technology that can keep these batteries cool in the event of a crash, that can respond immediately to cool them down.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, are you suggesting some sort of a water-filled bumper?
Internal bumper.
Or like
just a big water balloon, you know?
Yeah.
Or using that space to, I mean, I don't know if it could deploy some sort of like firefighting foam or something like to
like an airbag style.
Yeah, airbag style, where if there was an accident, it just kind of filled this battery compartment with whatever it is that would help tamp down these fires.
In the limited amount of my understanding, okay, water is still the most effective thing because it cools it down the quickest. So in those cases, that foam and stuff, it like suffocates the fire, takes away the oxygen, but it's so hot, it just melts a lot of that. So you need water because you just have to get the temperature of that battery down as quickly as you possibly can. Water is apparently the best solution. So,
All right. Well, our most popular story this week, Caterpillar to move headquarters to Texas. The construction equipment manufacturer is packing up its headquarters in Illinois and moving to the Lone Star State. Caterpillar is transferring its global base to Irving, a Dallas suburb. The company has been based in Peoria, Illinois for more than 90 years before it moved to Deerfield in 2017. Caterpillar has an office in Irving and has been in the state since the 1960s. The CEO, Jim Umpleby, said, "We believe it's the best strategic interest of the company to make this move." The transition will happen this year, and Caterpillar will become the latest major corporation to ditch the Chicago area. If you remember last month, Boeing said it was moving to the Washington, D.C. area. I think the bigger story, Jeff, is every company moving to Texas. I mean, including Tesla, Oracle, Hewlett-Packard, and many more that are particularly leaving California.
Yeah, I think this is pretty straightforward, to be honest. I mean, there is lower operating costs in Texas compared to some of these other geographies, especially California. Okay. Now, this is far enough outside of Chicago that it's not as bad as some of the other places like in Cook County, but it's still more expensive. It just is. And the other big thing is Texas has no personal or corporate income tax. So if you're making a good salary, like you would assume somebody's working at Caterpillar's headquarters is, that's a pretty nice benefit for your employees potentially to not have that personal income tax. Now, Texas compensates for it in other areas. There's higher sales taxes in some things, but just this area that they're going to in Irving, which I think we know best from like the Cowboys actually play in Irving, it's just a less expensive place to operate. So if you've got that many people in that area, less taxes, less overhead, more appealing potentially. Plus it also, I was looking at a stat here in terms of future employment growth, it's got like a 12% increase over Deerfield, Illinois, when you look at Irving, Texas. So there's potential if you're looking to grow operations there and have more people at your headquarters, it does offer some opportunities there too.
Do either of you know what it takes to move your headquarters? Is it just that you change the mailing address, or do you need to have like specific operations to call it your headquarters?
That I don't know, but I mean, it'd be pretty easy for them to do. They already have a facility there.
Yeah.
And if you look at what's happening here, I mean, it's got a lot of press, and CAT employs a lot of people. They're moving 230 workers. That's it. Meanwhile, they continue to employ 17,000 workers in Illinois. But as Jeff mentioned, this will save CAT some tax dollars, and it's probably an easier logistical move than to like move a factory. That'd be a lot more difficult. And if you look at the remote work situation, it's possible that it's easier even now for them to do this because maybe some of their key executives don't have to move. Maybe they can continue to work remotely and they, their roots in Chicago, but just get paid in Texas. So it's clear. So Reuters reported that Caterpillar said that they did not take any incentives to make this move. That doesn't really surprise me because it's not like they're creating jobs. They're not saying they're creating jobs. They're only moving a few jobs. But as Jeff said, there are probably some reasonable tax implications down the road. So
when you don't have to pay taxes on your profits, that's pretty appealing.
Yeah.
Well, I do believe, so if you did still telecommute from Illinois, I think you still have to pay Illinois taxes, even if you're working a Texas job.
Is that true?
I think so, because
I believe it's because it's the state of Texas. So if you don't, when you pay your taxes.
I see. So you have to be a resident to get that tax break. That makes sense. Yep.
But again, the company still gets that tax break.
Yeah.
Jeff, I'm surprised by how impassioned people are by Caterpillar. Like, I mean, we've with the trivia that we've had the last couple of weeks, and I think actually today's, Caterpillar would have been a good option because whenever we have cat stories, they do so well. There's just a lot of interest, almost equivalent to like a John Deere.
The only thing that kept Caterpillar out of the trivia question for this week is the fact that we didn't have a lot of stories in the past year. But individually, they pull really well. I think it just sort of goes back to the fact that it's U.S. made machinery. It's the stuff you see that's doing road work and building buildings. And I mean, going back to playing with Tonka trucks and stuff when I was a kid, it does have that appeal. I think that's just, again, just sort of one of those iconic American manufacturers that everybody feels good about and wants to know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So Dropbox CEO Drew Houston and Douglas Merritt, the CEO of Splunk, are also new residents of Texas. Splunk is a data company.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I was just like, man, this has got to be a small company.
Splunk,
about
sure.
7,100 employees. They do like IT, data, cybersecurity. But one stat that I thought was interesting, more than 687,000 Californians have moved to Texas since 2010. 13% of new Texas residents are from California.
I mean, you can see it, right? With the personal income tax thing. I mean, California is rough.
Well, it has to be a windfall for a person doing the exact same thing to move to Texas.
Well, especially, and I closed the window, but like just the price of a home. When you looked at Deerfield, Illinois, and I'm sure if you could definitely relate that to any place in California versus Irving, Texas, I mean, it's hundreds of $1,000s difference in terms of just buying a house.
No, it's definitely going to be a different lifestyle for anyone willing to make the move.
Get a hat, get some boots.
I think that's all you have to do. I think actually you get that as you cross the border with your U-Haul.
Just like
they're just like, here you are.
I don't approve of the stereotype, Anna. I think we need to be more sensitive to that.
I do.
Yikes. Okay, Jeff.
Well, before we get down this free boots and hat discussion, let's move on to...
That's the one thing I've said that's offended you in my life.
Just now.
Just now, the hat and boots thing.
That's the one today.
Okay.
All right. Well, no, before we move on to, in case you missed it, we have another word from our sponsor.
Oil Eater's household cleaners, industrial cleaners, and industrial equipment are specifically designed to replace dangerous solvents and are used throughout the world. Our safe water-based formula dissolves grease and grime for almost any surface and leaves a fresh, non-chemical scent. Our ultra-concentrated formulas are perfect for light, medium, or heavy cleaning and can be used on shop floors, in parts washers, to clean equipment, and more. VOC compliant, Oil Eater will do an excellent job in a multitude of applications, safely and cost-effectively, while reducing your chemical usage. Safe for the user, safe for the surfaces being cleaned, and safe for the environment. For more information, visit oileater.com or call 800-528-0334.
And we're back. And before we get started with In Case You Missed It, just a reminder that you can click the link below and get yourself a free sample of Oil Eater. You know what? Actually, probably don't click any links right now if you're in our live feed. Maybe just give it a minute. Go to the description specifically. All right, now, in case you missed it, the stories that maybe weren't as popular on the website, but still stand to make a big impact on the industry going forward. I'll go first this week. I did a story on a startup that wants to power the entire U.S. grid with, quote, fancy regenerative winches. Not wenches, as we had a horrific typo for a minute, but that the readers on our website certainly had fun with. Just like, whoa, what kind of wenches do we have fixing the grid? But that was addressed in short order. So, Renewwell, and it's Renewwell Energy, is a new startup that created a mechatronic conversion system called Artemis Prime. And it takes inactive gas wells and turns them into mechanical energy conversion systems. Basically, big mechanical batteries. They have a weight at the top of the well that is dropped down the tube. It's controlled with a wire rope or cable which pulls a winch attached to a motor generator. As it descends, it's making power. It's like a big mechanical battery, like I said. But it's more like a hydroelectric dam than a lithium-ion battery that you think about. The prototype is 20 feet long, 7 feet wide, weighs 5 tons, and can expand to become 40 feet long. Renewwell Energy co-founders Stefan Streckfuss and Kemp Gregory formed the idea for Artemis Prime. Kemp is a former Shell engineer, and he says that inactive wells are an environmental blight that could be and should be cleaned up. Now, the prototype was built at PCD Works in Texas, which is an engineering firm at about an 80-acre innovation campus. PCD Works has helped develop more than 30 patents including projects for Pepsi, the U.S. military, Kodak, and Kellogg's. There are up to 700,000 old wells in the United States that could be converted and generate enough power to run the entire United States for 2 weeks. Renewal, their tagline is oil wells that end well. And I just like this because it was a feel-good story solving a current problem, solving multiple problems with a really innovative solution. And I found it encouraging. I don't know. Did you get a chance to check this out, Jeff?
Yeah. So what's holding them back right now? Is it just the cost?
Oh, no. No, it's a prototype. Nothing's really holding them back. They developed the prototype at PCD Works, which has this like hard tech base camp that they use to, instead of like how they have software incubators, this hard tech base camp is to actually make real products. So they went there to Texas to develop it. Which has taken a few years, a little bit longer than they expected. And now they just got some grant funding, some millions of dollars to really make it a reality. So I would say nothing is holding them back right now, as they seem to be in a perfect spot right now where both people from the oil industry are calling for this, and that new infrastructure bill just came through and there's a lot of funding available. So nothing's really holding them back. And I find it very encouraging.
No, agreed. Especially when you can take something that's in place and basically just not being utilized and make it prosperous. I mean, this is where you wish like Musk or somebody like that would look at this instead of trying to buy a social media outlet or figure out how to manufacture on the moon. Okay. Jeff Bezos, like this is real. This solves a problem right now, especially when we look at the grid and we want to put all these electric vehicles out there. We're going to need stuff like this. So I think it's awesome.
Yeah. Anna, did you have a chance to check out the story?
I did. I agree. It's very cool. These inactive wells are huge producers of like leaking methane, which is terrible for the environment. And it's not, you can't stress enough how bad these are for the environment. They also contribute to like groundwater contamination and, a lot of oil companies, they just like cap them and leave, but that's not an effective way to keep this stuff from happening. So I can see why the oil companies who are, as we go here, kind of facing increased pressure to do something about this, kind of leaving their infrastructure behind that's causing all these, planet warming emissions. So for them to have a solution right at hand that could be utilized, I think that we will see this actually, hit the market and be utilized well. So that's exciting.
Yeah. You guys are doing it. Stefan and Kem. Keep going.
Hooray.
Yeah. Just really recommend checking out this story on our websites, just because if anything, you might find it inspiring. Anna, what's your in case you missed it this week?
Okay, so the California Supreme Court on Wednesday left intact a ruling that allows customers to sue Amazon for failing to warn buyers that some products it sells may contain hazardous substances. So the court basically denied a request by Amazon, who was hoping to have an earlier court's ruling overruled, saying that Amazon was violating California's Prop 65. And that requires companies to warn consumers about products that may contain chemicals that are known to cause cancer, reproductive harm, birth defects, stuff like that. So the lawsuit was originally dismissed in 2019, but a judge, so at that time, a judge had decided that Amazon was protected from liability because the content was posted by other parties on their marketplace. Oh, yeah. But later, a state appeals court said that Amazon doesn't merely act as a place for retailers to list their available merchandise, but actively stores, sells, and ships them. So they gave the example of a drugstore that sold these same items would also be required to issue Prop 65 warnings in California. So I thought this was interesting because it could really have some big implications for marketplaces or even drop shippers or anyone along the supply chain that serves a more integrated role. I happen to agree that Amazon blurs the line a bit with its Prime badge. It makes it hard to distinguish where these products are coming from. And if they want it that way, then they can't have their cake and eat it too, in my opinion. The article points to this skin lightening cream that was at issue here. And they say some of the products produced by third parties but sold on Amazon contain mercury levels that were thousands of times the U.S. federal legal limit.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Mercury?
Yeah.
It's like the worst one.
It's not good.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think this ruling is another necessary pressure that needs to be applied to Amazon specifically to better police its marketplace and verify that its sellers and its goods are the real deal, because it's been documented how easy it is to sell counterfeit goods on Amazon.
Yeah.
Goods that are being sold against the wishes of the manufacturer, so they only sell direct, and suddenly their goods are appearing on Amazon.
Yeah, stuff that's been recalled, discontinued.
Recalled. One study found that they pulled a bunch of products out of the dumpster, sold them on Amazon. They got sold, drop shipped via Amazon, put a Prime badge on them. I mean, so I use Amazon. I've gotten a lot more careful about what I will buy from Amazon.
Same.
And this isn't a specific dig on just Amazon. Marketplaces are difficult to manage. When you have a lot of sellers and you have to create guidelines for them, you need to be able to police that. Amazon is so big at this point. It's become very difficult to police. So I know they do, I don't know if it's the best they can, but they're doing some work on trying to pull products from the site that don't fit their guidelines. And they do have some guidelines in place. But this, I think, will have some implications for them. Once California makes a rule on something, you kind of end up applying that universally in many cases because they have such a big population. So we'll see what happens.
Well, Amazon always wants the benefits of these third-party partners. But I mean, and then as soon as some sort of problem comes up, it's like, whoa.
That's not our stuff.
That's not us.
Yeah,
that's a third party. That's a third party. Anna, what's a drop shipper?
So like if a product is, you sell it on your website, but you never actually take possession of it. Somebody else holds it for you and they sell it from a warehouse.
Oh, okay. I was not familiar with that term. Jeff, your thoughts on the news with Amazon and kind of how they interact with third-party sellers?
Look, we preach at all parts of the supply chain for greater visibility and accountability. It doesn't matter if you're a consumer, a supplier, a distributor, or the actual manufacturer, producer of that goods. That's what everybody is talking about right now. In this instance, Amazon's no longer just like there. They're ingrained into sort of everybody's day to day. So they have a greater responsibility now, and taking the extra time to ensure they know what they're selling, that it's a safe product. That's just good business practices. The fact that they need to be forced to do it is rather disappointing. I think everybody has sort of become informed to the fact that you need to be careful what you're doing there. The other thing that I hope that this also impacts is a lot of the pricing models. A lot of stuff that you can find super cheap on whatever marketplace, not just Amazon, there might be a reason for it.
Oh, yeah.
So taking that extra step and being that much more accountable at the point of purchase is going to help everybody out.
I'm not this neurotic yet, but when my kids get a gift that I can tell is just something that was bought off of Amazon on the cheap, I kind of want to ask if they could send me a link. Like, can you just send me a link as to where you got this from? I'm just curious. No big deal. No big deal. But I just want to know that if this already chipping paint on this balloon launcher is full of lead.
It's fair.
Jeff, what is your in case you missed it this week?
So I picked out a story talking about a Maine senator who's pushing to convert Department of Defense vehicles to EVs or zero emission vehicles. So basically we've got in Maine, Senator Angus King. He has introduced a bill that basically says the Department of Defense. The Department of Defense.
That's on Jeff.
So I do that once.
That's for all the other ones, Jeff.
Wait till 2 weeks from now. You just wait.
I'm sure that I'll pick. I'll fix
every
all
time.
of my...
I'm gonna have a button up here. It's like whammy or something like that.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Maine Senator Angus King introduced a bill that would ask the Department of Defense to ensure that 3/4 of the non-tactical vehicles purchased by the department would either be electric or zero emissions and made in the U.S. I think this is a great idea for a couple of different reasons. Number one, we're looking at basically getting EVs up to scale. So what the Department of Defense is going to do, whether it's a car, a van, a truck, anything not going out on the battlefield, essentially, 3/4 of that fleet needs to be EVs. So if we're sourcing it from U.S. companies, it's going to help them improve that technology. We've already talked about the reliability for something like the Mustang Mach-E. Ford can use these government fleets to basically help make the product better for the consumer. I think it's a great idea. It's helping to transition a technology that we need to transition and want to transition into the mainstream potentially more quickly. And sort of, it's just a huge pilot program in ways. Now, if you're on a military installation and you're stuck with one of these EVs that is not functioning well, yes, it's going to be extremely frustrating. And trust me, there are tens of thousands of these vehicles that we'd be talking about. But again, bigger picture, if we're putting all of this stock, which the government seems to, in electric vehicles, is a great way to get sort of the kinks removed, get the automakers up to scale, and also get another collection of drivers comfortable with electric vehicles in terms of the range that they have, the reliability, all that kind of stuff. So I like it.
Put your money where your mouth is, right?
Essentially, I mean, well, it's more like, I mean, yeah, put your money where your mouth is, but also invest in these U.S. companies that are trying to do the things that you want to. So, yeah.
Anna, it reminds me a little bit about when the Postal Service was going through a fleet upgrade. And then, what was it? Like only 10% of it had to be EV?
Yeah, that didn't really work out.
No, but I'm just hopeful that maybe they saw what went bad with that. And they'll be like, all right, we're going to do it right this time.
Yeah. I like that it's not a full blanket either. I mean, I think it leaves some room for, case by case needing something different. But I totally agree with you. I think it's a great project, and it's a good way to get some visibility for some of these vehicles out there in the market, for people to be more comfortable, for updates to be made. And so it's exciting.
Well, I think it's the perfect application too. And I can't speak so much to every base, but the ones that I was on, a lot of these fleet vehicles are used for short drives. I need to go from this unit to the PX to the medical facility, whatever. So it is perfect for an EV, really.
Wow. All right. Well, let's move on to our final thoughts before we get out of here. Anna, what's your final thought this week?
So just in case anyone is anxious for an update about my weekend camping, my first attempt at tent camping, I will say this. We had a wonderful time at, it was a state park in Wisconsin. It was very beautiful. And we did lots of fun hikes and playground stuff. And my kids had a blast. Definitely top 5 worst nights of all time sleeping. I don't know. I was just telling David earlier that every day that passes since that, like when we were like driving home, I was like, well, maybe next summer we could try this again. But like every day that passes and I still am like completely wrecked in the shoulder area, that date gets further and further away.
But you did not heed the advice of your respected podcast panel.
I did. What happened was, so there was blow up mats. Everybody had mats. But my 7-year-old daughter, it was pouring overnight, and water came into the tent on her stuff, which, as you may guess, a 7-year-old does not respond well to at 2:00 in the morning. So I gave her my stuff, and then I slept on the ground. And I think my husband didn't realize that was what was happening, because normally he would not like just let me do that. You know what I mean? Like, and in the morning he was like, wait, what happened? And I'm like, I'm dead now. Like, my whole left side is broken.
Right. The days of being able to like comfortably sleep on the floor and just get up the next day, those are over.
Why is the ground harder than the floor? I don't understand it. It was like the most insane thing. Like,
were you camping in the parking lot?
Yeah.
It felt like we were camping in the parking lot.
It should be, it's summer. The ground should be softer. It should form, It did not form. Nothing formed. When I say heed the advice, what did Jeff say? Jeff said you got to dig the trench.
Well, we didn't know that it was going to rain until the rain was supposed to be done. And then we went to bed, and then it just like surprise rained the whole night. Like it was clear in the forecast, and then it just poured the whole night. So, but like, what do you do? Dig a trench in the middle of the night in the rain like a psychopath?
No, you just,
That's what you would do?
If you have to. I'm sure that would have made Avery much more calm and feel good about everything.
Exactly. Yeah. Hang tight, kid. I gotta go dig a trench.
Luckily, you'll have your like EV hole digging shovel right in the car.
That's true when I have to bury my car.
Yeah. You just use that to make a trench real quick.
Now I know what we can get Anna for Christmas. An entrenching tool.
Already lined up.
Just need a shovel.
Is it different than like a hoe?
An entrenching tool?
When you say,
do you know what a military entrenching tool looks like? It's a small shovel that folds up.
Oh, okay. I'm like, no, that's why I said, is it a hoe? Like,
it's a shovel.
Okay, it's a shovel.
Just a small one.
Oh, it's the little metal like spades or whatever, so it can like fit in a. Yeah. Okay. I think I know. I'm picking up.
He has no clue.
Shovels 101.
Yeah.
By Jeff Ranke.
Entrenching tools 101.
Well, Anna, I was so excited for you guys to go camping that, we had talked about going camping too. But luckily, nature came and gave us our own little camping opportunity this week because we had some storms come through, knocked out our power for several days. And it was like camping as well in a giant 90 plus degree Wisconsin hot box as you're wondering what's spoiling. Your kids are crying because like dust is sticking to their skin.
Oh my God, they were probably so hot, huh?
It was, everyone was hot, but it was actually, it wound up being a lot of fun. There was a lot of like running around with headlamps in our underwear, their underwear, just the kids. And it was, I thought of you immediately the first night as we're sitting there like with candlelight, doing nothing, like kind of just trying to make games. I'm like, this is close enough to camping right now.
That is not... No, my experience was nothing like that.
You needed
it is
you
worth
take
noting.
that party out to the ground and then call me about it and let me know. Yeah.
It is worth noting, David, you had multiple coworkers who invited you and your family over out of the heat.
Oh, I know. It was like the first day was like, because normally anytime we've had a power outage, it's been hours at most.
Yeah.
And it was just like, yeah, I mean, what's 17,000 people without power? What are the chances we're going to be dead last? But luckily, after the second day, around like hour 36, I was starting to get squirrely about losing my freezers. And I'm just like, all right, if I lose my freezers, I could justify the cost of a generator. So I went out, bought a generator after softball, to which I would like people to know that generators are surprisingly large and won't fit in a Toyota Yaris. So
You took the Yaris to get the generator?
I take the Yaris to softball. And then I took to get the generator, and I was just like, I went to try and put it into the car, and I asked, because the store closed at 9. I ran in at 8:56. I called ahead. I'm like, hold a generator for me. And they're like, why are you late? I'm like, because I had to play softball. And they understood. But this coworker who was trying to help me get it into the car was just like kind of laughing. Just like, all right.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, just lift. And then relifted, and it was just not going to happen. But luckily,
was the back of the Yaris literally like touching the ground?
No, it was. At first, I tried to get it in the rear passenger door. My first mistake, and then I went to I opened the trunk, and the guy's just like, right, man. I'm like, well, no. I mean, I'm close. If I teeter it,
if I take it out of the box,
But luckily, our friend and coworker Mitzi answered his phone, and he was there real quick.
Oh,
he's
that's
like,
nice.
Yeah, he's like, let me just finish my beverage, and then I'll be there. I'm like, that's okay. I'll just sit in this parking lot and read the manual. But it was like camping. It was rustic. It was rustic, but it's also a good reminder that you can survive a night in 90-degree heat, and it's only kind of terrible.
If I am such a warm weather wimp, I don't know.
Yeah.
I would have checked into a hotel or something.
I had that moment of panic where we were all actually as we were leaving the first or second day, and all of a sudden everyone just started offering their house, and then it kind of gave me anxiety. I'm like, wait a second, am I the bad dad because I'm not getting us out of here? Do we need a hotel? Do we need to go to your parents' house? Where are we going? And then she's just Carrie kept her head. She's like, nah, I think we're fine.
Yeah, yeah,
we're fine. The milk's not. Milk goes back quick. But no, it wound up being a little bit of bonding, and really I have a more positive outlook because the generator worked, and we were able to save the fridge, the freezer, and it was enough to get a fan going on me. So saved me as well. Yeah. Jeff, what's your final thought this week?
So I want to read a letter. Excuse me. I want to read a letter that I got from a listener, and the reason I want to read this is it offers a little bit of perspective on why we cover some of the incidents that we do. Okay. There could be kind of a misnomer. We cover a lot of these industrial accidents. They get a lot of headlines. They get a lot of attention. And I think there can be a thought of, why do we actually do that? Or some question as to why we do that. And I think her letter actually offers a lot of perspective on that. So, excuse me. My name is Christina. My aunt was the 63rd person to be killed by a Brightline train on May 7th, 2022 in Pompano Beach. Now, about 3 weeks after this, we ran an article about this train line and how it was going to expand. Yeah. At that point, there had been 68 fatalities. So in this 3 week time, there was another 5.
Oh, wow.
She says, I've been reading articles and just trying to figure out where to start. From where I sit, I have to wonder what the hell is going on down there. Brightline may be in compliance with FRA guidelines, but who wrote them? It's a no-brainer. Install fence-style gates at intersections and slow your speed. Honestly, everyone wants to blame the victims, but no one wants to take responsibility or hold anyone accountable. When you have a high-speed train, don't give people an option to try and get through the barrier. People are dumb. People will always be dumb. Don't allow them to be. Don't give them the option to be. Shame on Brightline and Florida. No person should ever have to think of a loved one's last moments in such a violent way, and no one should ever be made to feel that they don't matter. Why is no one doing anything? My aunt was number 63, and there have been more. She was 54 years old. She made a bad decision, but so did 62, now 67, other people before her. It didn't occur to someone after death number 20 that this is an issue. I don't want to sue Brightline. I think that you can put the explicative in there that you want. I want to talk to the state and counties that sit back and do nothing. It's not okay. Sincerely, Christina Sage. Now, I wanted to read this because, again, when we look at some of these things that we run on these horrible industrial accidents, it can kind of go back to that old journalistic adage of, hey, if it bleeds, it leads, because it gets a lot of attention, a lot of headlines. And when we talk about this stuff on the podcast, I don't think we ignore the tragedy of it, but we tend to talk about it from a topical perspective and what could have been done, what should have been done, what does this mean for the industry? And this is why we do these stories, because they need to be brought to light. People need to talk about these things. Just because they're somewhat graphic and tragic doesn't mean we're taking advantage of those situations. We present these stories so that individuals like Christina's aunt here can have their story told, so that people know about it, so that we can hopefully get better and prevent this stuff, because people don't want these types of headlines. So I just wanted to offer some thoughts there, because we've received some criticism on why we run so many of these types of articles and why we're always talking about these types of articles. And are we looking for them just to get page views? No, there's a story to tell, and there's a reason why we continue to tell it. So that's why I wanted to read this. And I appreciate Christina allowing us to read this on the podcast.
Yeah, very well said. And thank you for Christina for sharing that.
Yeah. In a somewhat awkward transition, I don't know if you guys wanted to comment any more on that, but
no, I just appreciate Christina, writing in. I certainly understand, her passion and her anger is certainly felt in that letter. And I think you're right that, or she's right that, a lot of times in these, when there are accidents or stories with larger numbers, you start thinking of the number and you don't think of the individuals. And sometimes it's good to remember or think of the individuals and the families that were impacted, by some bad decision making by all parties included.
Right.
Anna?
Yeah. I know. It was a very sad situation, and appreciate you contributing your insight to this and your experience, Christina.
All right.
Now a less awkward transition. No.
Yeah. So what we try to do with this podcast is bring people together a little bit to talk about something in common. I just hope last week's trivia did not do the opposite in some respects.
Oh, no.
Okay. Because we did talk about the companies that we thought potentially or the companies that were getting the most engagement on our site. So the options was Boeing, Amazon, SpaceX, John Deere, and Harley Davidson. Now, first of all, congratulations to Joe. I think this is like the third one in a row he's gotten right. So Joe. He's doing well. We also had a couple of other people respond. If you remember last week, we talked about Nick Barman, and he had taken second. He'd picked the second best answer the 2 weeks prior. And we wanted to give him a shirt or something like that to say, hey, keep trying, appreciate it. He responded again with the second most prominent answer. So if that wasn't bad enough, Nick's wife, Crystal, who the week before he said, I just hope she doesn't get this right. She also responded with the correct answer.
Oh, Crystal.
So hopefully we are not causing tension in the Barman family. But Crystal did get the correct answer. The number one company over the last year, Boeing. Number 2 was Amazon. That was Nick's answer. 3 was SpaceX. Those 3 were extremely close.
Yeah.
And then John Deere and Harley Davidson. So congratulations to Crystal. Nick, please don't give up.
Keep trying, Nick. You're doing great. Seconds. Fine.
So this week, continuing sort of in this same vein, we had the story about Lego. So kind of thinking about some of the toy companies we've covered in the past year. There have been a couple of them. So in order, what is the most popular toy company that we have covered in the past year in terms of audience engagement? Is it Barbie, Nintendo, Lego, Hasbro, or Mattel. Now, a lot of these stories dealt with supply chain issues. We had some new product introductions. We do that story on the Toy Hall of Fame. So there's a lot of different stuff going on. So again, let me know which one had the most engagement. The options are Barbie, Nintendo, Lego, Hasbro, and Mattel.
Okay, so Barbie is owned by Mattel. So is she on an island?
She's separate.
She's a separate.
She's separate.
Okay. And does this include this week's? Is this like real time? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, real
Because
time.
they know that Lego was number 1 or at least number 5 this week.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I was wondering
Let me
why
know.
you Googled Barbie. I was like, you've never heard of this?
No,
he's an
I'm-
action figure guy. He
I'm
doesn't,
pretty
you know.
sure. Because I'm like, I was 99% sure Barbie was Mattel, but like after the depends comment, I just really needed to be sure. So we're gonna know.
That's the question.
Okay.
And hopefully we're holding out for Nick here. He needs to
Okay.
get one right. Hopefully
All right.
his wife does not, because who knows what that's going to lead to.
Just more anticipation for the next
She's
week.
going to wear the t-shirt around the house nonstop now.
Nice. Yeah. If you have any pictures of yourselves wearing the shirts or the hats, send them in. We'll share them on the podcast. Why not? This community. Let's share.
Yeah, Crystal, let me know if you want a shirt or a hat and what size.
You should get one in Nick's size, and then still just wear it around like, oh, this isn't for you. Like, this is like
Cold.
more of a pajama shirt. All right. Well, before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. You could also subscribe to @IEN Magazine on YouTube, so that way you can get a notification whenever we go live. To email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, Anna, or David at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to our daily and weekly newsletters. Make sure you get the podcast to your inbox first. All right, for Jeff and Anna, I'm David Manti. This is the Today in Manufacturing podcast, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Today in Manufacturing podcast.